Hi, I'm Marie. I'm going to be sharing how Chinese culture and narcissism overlap. Now, the very foundation of Chinese culture is filial piety, where children are expected to obey and respect their elders and their parents. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. In fact, I appreciate and admire Chinese culture, and I really loved growing up in a Chinese family, even though it was narcissistic. But one of the ways that a narcissistic person in Chinese culture misinterprets that belief system is how they emphasize blind obedience over individuality. Now, in Chinese culture, the group is more important than the individual. The group can be the family, the community, the country you're from. And this is so that there's greater social cohesion and unity. But this doesn't mean that the individual is not important. A narcissistic person, however, does see individuality as a threat, especially in the case of a narcissistic parent who requires their children to sacrifice themselves for that parent and also for the family. And this can lead to enmeshment, which is when the role of the parent, the role of the child is kind of blurred, where the child almost becomes like a surrogate spouse or fills the role of a spouse, where the child is providing financial and emotional support to their parent, because narcissistic parents are emotionally immature and do not know how to set healthy boundaries with their children. And within Chinese culture, because you are expected to respect your parents, in the case of a Chinese narcissistic parent, they will use that for their benefit by ingraining in their child that the parent is always right and that there is no room for mistakes, or that the parent is incapable of ever being wrong. Now, when I was growing up, I grew up in a Singaporean Chinese family. So even though we are Chinese, I have learned just from talking with different friends and being in different support groups for adult children of narcissistic parents, is that even Chinese families who are narcissistic in mainland China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, the narcissism shows up differently. And I think the difference between a Singaporean Chinese narcissistic family and a mainland Chinese narcissistic family is mainly that a mainland Chinese narcissistic family only has one child due to the one-child policy, whereas in Singapore there isn't a limit to the number of children that you can have. And so because there are more children in a Singaporean family, the narcissistic parent can use different children for specific needs. So one child can be financially abused, another child might be more emotionally abused, and then one child might get neither positive or negative attention from the narcissistic parent. And part of that financial and emotional debt that the narcissistic parent has made their children think that they owe, it's because the narcissistic parent wants to create codependency. They do not want their children to be independent, and they want you to remember that they raised you and that you owe them no matter what. it's very common in a Chinese narcissistic family for the children to never leave the home. I know adult children of Chinese narcissistic families who have never lived on their own, who have always lived with their narcissistic parent even after they got married. Whereas a healthy Chinese parent might live in the house next door, or maybe live in the same village or neighborhood. But a narcissistic parent isn't self-aware enough to recognize the importance of boundaries and for their child to have their own identity. Now, another thing that I wanted to bring up, something that's important in Chinese culture, is saving face, or 面子, where your face, your reputation is really important. And in a healthy Chinese family, if you make a mistake and you embarrass your family, you know, there is some shame. Maybe you don't go out to events or meet with other family members for a while. But in a narcissistic family, the parent usually goes insane. Like, I've experienced it firsthand, where they either lash out physically, throwing items, they're screaming, and it can be so unpleasant and extremely confusing, especially when you're a child, because you feel like you've made such a grave mistake, even if it was something really minor. And the narcissistic parent expects the child to endure the mistreatment for the sake of saving face, because maintaining their reputation and maintaining their image that they have in their heads, that they are a good parent, that they have a good family, is more important than making sure that their child is okay. Thank you so much for watching this video. If anything resonated with you, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. I respond to every comment, and I will see you next time.